sir. Good evening. Welcome to the December 19th of 2022 public board meeting of the Kingston City Land Bank. My name is Mike. I'm the executive director. We do ask that any and all members of the public limit their comments to no more than 2 minutes per speaker. And with that, I will hand it over to Daniel Cantor, the board chair.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our last meeting of 2022. What a year it's been. Roll call real quick. I'm Daniel Cantor, board chair.
Rob Dennison, vice chair.
Bartek Stardine, secretary.
Ethel Knox, board member. Is there anyone?
Sorry, Christina's on.
Christina, can you state your name? Oh,
Hi, I was muted. Hi, Christina Bechet, board member.
hi, Christina.
Hi.
Welcome back. Okay, that's everyone, right?
So far, I'll let you know if anyone else jumps on.
And now I will state that we have quorum. Okay, can we real quick vote to accept prior meeting minutes as uploaded to YouTube?
I'll make the motion.
Seconded.
All in favor of approving prior or accepting prior meeting minutes as uploaded to YouTube from November's board meeting?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Great job, team. Okay, it's been a short month because we're like a week early, so big welcome to Ethel and Christina. Thank you for joining our board. We're so oh, and Aaron's here. Who knows that? We have, I don't know. Anyway, we're thrilled to have you both. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the meeting. Let's see, early this month, the rest of the board, save for you guys, I think, did the diversity, equity, and inclusion training with coordinated care services incorporated out of Rochester. They were absolutely wonderful, and I'm really glad we did that. So we'll probably try to make that an annual event. So yeah, thank you to those folks for coming down.
Are we just gonna rate that individually? Should we got a thing from them saying, how do we do? Does everybody do their own? Do you want to group?
Well, sorry to interject, Dan, but just for context, they had sent us take a survey about how we did. I sent it around to all board members. It had asked to send it around to everybody else. So I think individuals.
Okay.
Cool.
They did fine. They did good.
Yeah.
They were great. You'll get it next year. Okay, cool. So fill out your surveys if you attended. Let's see. Franklin Street, we were gonna have some interesting updates from Owen. But lots and lots of discussion about that in the past month. Seems like we have a path forward-ish. German and East Union, we started compiling the sales and marketing materials for those houses, which included finalizing prices. So I think we're slated to begin marketing those homes on the 17th, January 17th. It will be a 60-day marketing period. And keep an eye out, sign up, tell your friends. We have Kyle has put together a really nice responsibilities matrix. Kind of use Mike loves the matrix.
It's a weakness.
I didn't know what it was, but now I do too. Anyway, that breaks down a bunch of different tasks. So if it hasn't been sent around to the whole board already, we should do that and then kind of look at it and see where you might want to pencil yourself in for any outreach and things like that. Cool. And those homes are coming together very nicely with Maida contracting. Mike has very exciting updates on 3rd Ave, so I won't steal that. And lastly, the city of Kingston, I believe did not really discuss the resolution for disposing of city-owned properties at the last finance meeting, which means it again did not get passed to the full council, which means again, we are delayed. Is it a delay at this point? So I have gotten a commitment from the chair of the finance committee to provide notes and possible edits or amendments or any basis whatsoever of discussion tomorrow. So hopefully we'll be able to continue that conversation in early January. Hopefully get, something put together that the council can support and possibly have this passed in January or February. So council, we continue to be thrilled to speak with you when you like. And I think that's it. Okay. Now, our representative from Hotstone was going to join us tonight. Is she gonna try to come next time? Okay, so that's on the agenda, but we're skipping it. We have a public comment section. Is there anyone else?
I think there is a member of the public who's not a part of the land bank team. You don't need to speak, but you're obviously welcome if you'd like to say anything.
Can we change it to like Valerie?
I can try.
I'm guessing that's me. Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie. I'm just here to listen in tonight.
Hi Natalie, welcome.
Thanks.
We have another public comment period at the end of the meeting, so if the spirit moves you, you'll have another chance. Okay. Let's go. Michael.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to start out by giving a big warm welcome to both Ethel and Christina. We're very happy that you guys are here. We're just very excited to work with you. So for what it's worth, I think it's great. I know we all do too. So I typically outline my meeting with like a pipeline section, a construction section, a sales section, a funding section, and another category. But so many people are doing so many amazing things that get reported on in the committee reports that I'll be more brief, and I think that's great to a certain extent. In our pipeline category, we, as Daniel mentioned, the city's disposition policy has not moved out of the finance committee. We hope to hear something from the city on December 20th, tomorrow. Of course, maybe the city will get those comments from the council, but we're told that something's supposed to happen tomorrow. So we look forward to hopefully engaging at the January finance meeting. As I don't believe we talked about in this meeting, but as we've talked about in many other meetings, we're still hoping to move forward, working with the city on quiet title action issues on the City Council 2018 Resolution 172 properties that were authorized by the council in 2018, but that need to have some title issues resolved before we can seek to acquire those. So we have some conversation at ADC possibly tonight, talk about possibly some options for that. But looking forward to some updates on that as well. And the city of Kingston, in not a formal way, but in our conversations around when new foreclosures might commence again with the city, we don't have a definitive timeline. It may occur sometime late next year. So we're in a holding pattern on that as well. I will mention the update last month. We talked about so we're trying to find pipeline. We're trying to find more properties. There's an organization that is associated with a consortium of national banks called the National Community Stabilization Trust. And they've been in existence since 2008, and they work with banks to get properties back on the tax rolls and sold in a very expeditious manner. So last month we looked at some of the ideas around what we think that program could look like, but we were waiting until meeting with the group or meeting with some representatives that we'll be connected with who've gone through this program for years in January before we would come back to the board with a real, this is what we'd like to propose to do, and this is what we recommend doing. The one update from last month was that there was conversation as to whether or not the sample resolution that would be entered into by the board to authorize me to make offers on properties. Our question was, does that run afoul of any of our policies or anything? Having done some research, it does not. So our acquisitions policy, which I hadn't looked at for a while, which is why I forgot in the meeting. It's consistent with the acquisitions policy that if the board passes a resolution that for every acquisition, I'll be able to do that. But no decisions in front of you tonight, but that's my update on that. The 4 properties, moving down the list, the 4 properties in pre-development, we've got Gill, Downs, and Henry, and 3rd Avenue. So 3rd Avenue, the survey is done. Thank you, Kyle, for sticking that out. It is our expectation that we will be acquiring early January,
That's amazing.
which is, it's been a while. Once we close.
That's what we should do.
Similarly, we expect to have comments back on the agreement for Henry Street next week, which means that we will also be seeking to close on Henry Street in January. Another update. Gill Street, no updates. Down Street, no updates. Hope to have some, but these are 2 that are sort of in limbo for 2 different reasons. And every month I say no updates, and hopefully some month I hope to have some updates. 5 homes under construction. Bob and Owen have updates under ADC about that. Sales updates. At the last board meeting, we approved moving forward with a new license agreement extension to the prospective purchaser that has been extended till the end of March of 2023. We continue to receive updates from him and super responsive, just trying to get through the process that he doesn't have control over all the time. So that's where he's at. That's where that property is at. Legacy Cities #1, as Daniel mentioned, we've had a discussion at the Comms and Fundraising Committee, I guess I'll call it, report, to go into more depth about what that plan might look like, which was also included in the board package, just the timeline. Funding updates. The City Council had approved a plan to award the Kingston City Land Bank $1.1 million in ARPA stimulus funds. It is our understanding now that the city will be requiring a competitive RFP or a request for proposals, which by its nature would be competitive. So we will have to make sure that we have a pipeline of properties to do something with that money before we would be able to apply competitively to spend them. Everything's kind of interrelated.
So is it allocated for us, or is it like is there is it set aside if we can prove need for that money, or is it like one pot and we in that vote that says that 1.1 million was kind of not like.
Yeah, what are the rules tonight?
I had a conversation with Bill Reynolds, who was the guy who's going to administrate this. And what he told me is they have the money, the money's in the bank, okay, which is a good thing. And he's still developing a process on how this is going to come to, how we're going to end up receiving that money. And one of the things we talked about when I talked to Bill was to sit down and let's develop a process. Let's do this jointly, which he seemed to be open to. He's kind of trying to figure out what to do. We have a couple of years. It's not going to run out. It's from what he told me, which is good. So we have a little time to think about this and sit down and talk about, negotiate how we do this and how we document it. City's got the money, so that's a good thing. Unlike many federal programs, which are first instance, where you have to spend the money and then go to the feds. City has it in hand, he tells me.
Interesting.
So we'll see. And it's a whole new thing. I mean, he's, you know, he just wandered into this. He was, you know, I thought him for a while, so we'll see how this goes.
But the council essentially may have allocated money kind of without jurisdiction to do so, essentially. Like they have
Their own process.
Exactly.
Allocate the money, their own process.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
About spending.
Yeah.
Right, they essentially decided that the process should be an RFP, right, even for.
But I'm not sure he's married to that yet.
Maybe we're just gonna wait and see kind of.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
Is
But
it competitive? Are we competing
No.
against anybody else?
When the council passed their thing, they said $1 million to the Kingston City land.
Right, so why do we have to go through the hoops?
Well, I think
It's a federal procurement thing, I think, and I think we're caught up in the federal procurement guidelines and requirements. It's,
Are they gonna tell us what goes on?
yes, they have passed, the
They'll
county
tell us
council
the day after.
passed them. No, they're in the board package from a couple months ago. We have the rules that were passed, we don't have the full engagement around what the process looks like, as Bob said, we gotta figure out the process, but it does remain to be a question as to how we're gonna get access. Real quick, because I know if you're okay with it, I would recommend finance go next, because then
Whatever.
Stacy has to leave shortly and haven't seen Nate yet, but I've been texting with him, so. unless he's
Wait,
texting.
am I presenting?
If you wouldn't mind, if that's, I can work with you on
Yeah,
that.
work with me on it. I
Sure.
didn't know I was gonna present, so I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay.
But what's
Maybe
the
that's-
usual, what does Nate usually do? I sat for one meeting, so I wasn't.
We've gone through a few different sort of presentation styles. A lot of it is going through previously the management report itself, but
Okay,
Now I think
So the management report changed.
the format of the report is different.
It is, so, it's not presented in a way that looks like a management report. What you have here is more financials.
Which is great.
Okay,
I think if I could could I just finish up my one with
Absolutely.
2 minutes? I just gotta spit this out, otherwise I can't sleep at night. Say everything I want to say. So, Land Bank Initiative, LBI, $200,000 awarded by the state of New York. That grant agreement has been entered into. All of our insurance issues that we had to basically hold a competitive bid RFP in order to meet the state's insurance requirements, that's all done. We expect to apply in January for the first tranche of funding, which is 25% of the total. That's my update on that. The Restore, last month, there was Restore funding from the city. I think the summary is that we were not selected to move forward under that application, and we also recognized that it's more geared towards non-affordable housing and non-housing related. It's more like an economic development, office, commercial development funding. So for future rounds, unless we had, again, a whole bunch of things that we could use this on, I would recommend maybe strongly considering not applying for future rounds.
I think the ownership is the issue.
We don't know.
We have to have.
We have to own something that we
ownership
can,
of the properties.
or if we
We're
can.
fine.
Which we're never gonna have, hopefully.
Yes.
Beale Street was the one.
Not for long.
But it was such a small project last time. I think there were other projects with more units, which is why we were not selected.
So is it possible we'd be more competitive if we have more properties?
Yes, I believe that's a fair statement.
And how would we go about? Interesting. I mean, it's relevant, like, these are the ramifications of these things just being out there wherever is like, we're missing opportunities to create affordable housing because,
We don't have the house.
and we don't know why because which is what makes.
You can't build them literally out of money, which if we could be another solution. It's like- That's a strange statement. My last statement I wanted to make or update, and I'm sure Stacey can provide more detail than I can, but we're happy to confirm that the 2023 operating grant has been funded to us. So,
yes,
Wonderful.
Yep.
That's,
yes,
yes.
and that was for.
Yep.
Yeah.
even flat rate. So, Stacey, I'd be happy to jump in with you on this. As you asked, what did we do before? We
Yeah.
typically pulled the file up and talked a little bit about it, but I think this
Are
is,
you gonna be able to pull it up?
I can do that. I can.
Because I'm not connected.
You should be able, you want to try this if you're more comfortable, if you want to do it when you jump around, if you were to log, I use the same Zoom that we use on like Mondays.
Okay,
If you click on that link and log in, you'll be able to share your screen immediately. I think that's how it works, but if you'd like me to pull it up, I can do that. Okay?
I'm just having a weak signal here, so I just had a little problems just bringing this down. I couldn't get onto the Wi-Fi.
really?
So I'm on.
What is the Wi-Fi here? I've never been on.
City of Kingston, and then City Hall 2000.
Yeah, that didn't work for me.
City, all lowercase?
Now everybody's got it.
There are good reasons to watch our board meetings. Perfect.
Oh my God. Could I, it did, cool. Well,
I'm sorry.
everybody got it.
It did?
These are pretty cool machines, yeah.
I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to do my best to drive. If you're okay with it, I wanted to pull up the new budget format because I think that's probably a nice jumping off point for context. And if you'd like me to jump into that and.
Yeah, you jump into that because you,
Yeah.
and Kyle,
Kyle and I don't want to put you on the spot, Kyle, other than to say thank you.
yes, thank you.
This is an update to the format that, and there's no change to the substance. This is an update to the format that the board passed in August of this year. And in essence, I think it just reads a lot easier. I'm sorry that's so small. Probably a good thing to have our budget so the public can read it. But you may recall in August, it was just, formatting was a little bit different. It was a little harder to read. It was much harder to read. And this is just updating the formatting so hopefully when we have conversations about finance-related issues or budgets or things like that, we can refer to this one document that's in the board package, and it makes it easier going forward. I don't think there's anything substantive to discuss other than this is the document we hope to use to talk about our budget. So with that, I will clumsily scroll down, and I'm on the KCLB balance sheet. So
Speak to it? Or is there anything that you specifically?
I think maybe we could, no, there's nothing honestly specific that jumps out. We had a great conversation at the finance meeting. You know, Nate and Aaron, I think both appreciate the style of reporting that you put in place, Stacey. I don't know, unless there's anything that jumped out that you wanted.
No, I think that just negative numbers always jump out to me, and it's sometimes a timing issue. And for the current assets, it's a really small amount, $62.13, and that's just prepaid insurance. It means that we're accruing an amount and we hadn't paid for it yet. So it's gonna, next month, it will be a positive number. We scroll down to the fixed assets, you can see that we are accumulating the costs for all of the properties. But the method that has been done in the past was that the project expenses to build the basis of these properties is on the P&L. At the end of the year, the auditors come in and they flip it around and they put it into the cost of the fixed assets. So these values in here for fixed assets aren't totally correct for right now. It's not what the value of the properties are. So probably, I wouldn't think that December's is gonna show anything different because we're not sure when the auditors are gonna come in to do that. In going down, you can see the current liabilities. There is a negative in the retainage payable header account. I don't normally like to post to that. I still have to investigate why that is that way. Probably has to just go into one of those bottom sub accounts. That's really all I really want to say about this. And again, it's I might next time do a comparison. I like to do year over year. So as I'm getting myself more familiar with the financials, I'll be able to provide that. The next is the profit and loss. And previously we've done the profit and loss just as a 1 month snapshot. And I found that to be very difficult to understand because there's some things that look funny if it's just 1 month at a time. So I decided to just show you every month what's happening. And again, you can see interesting number that's here that might jump out to anybody. Is in September on the grant income, there's a negative 500,000. That 500,000 is the money that came in March, and it went to the LLC in September. It was just like a holding. We held it, a parent, and then moved it over when everything came together for the LLC. So if you were just to see September by itself, you'd see what is that negative 500. So that's why I thought this was a really important way to show it. And then you can go down and you can see expenses. There's office expenses that are we're following. We're trying to follow the budget. We have other reporting that helps us to compare the budget and the actual. But since I'm so new to this, I haven't really figured out a way to show it to you. I'm still getting familiar with the QuickBooks and how it was kept before. If we go down, you can start to see, I wanted to point out actually what I was talking about before. So in the, are you on page? The property cost. So right in there is the project expenses, and that all that amount right there is going to, at the end of the year, disappear. It's going to be a journal entry that's made. That's going to now allocate those specific amounts to the basis of each of the properties. So that's, I just wanted to orient you on that, and that's what I was talking about. So, but it's important to see the property costs in this way, I think, for the team. So it's, you know,
Yeah.
not in just lumped into an asset bucket. It's in this way.
So,
Do you have a question?
kind of.
Okay, good.
So the assets that way up there.
Yeah, the balance sheet.
Right,
Mhm.
those essentially like include all of the
Not yet,
project.
not
No.
yet. So at the end of the year, so last year in 2021, the accountants closed out the books and then they pulled that amount and they put it to the specific properties.
Right,
Okay, so this year, right now, all these project expenses are what we have spent this year so far. And at the end of the year, there's gonna be a reallocation of it, taking it off of, it's not an expense, you know.
right,
It's actually moving an asset.
right.
This is way that it's been shown, I think, to help you guys understand what's being spent every month.
And with those, well, are they elsewhere in the system, like divided per house or?
So yes, so there is now, within QuickBooks, there's actually a classification that was done, and then we can pull that, but it gets very, very complicated to kind of show in this kind of, I'm happy to show you anytime you want, but I think right now it just gets really
I
complicated.
was just curious.
Yeah. We do, so everything is allocated per house and also allocated against
Right,
the funding.
right.
So it's very sophisticated, but it's hard to do that. Maybe next year. We can try for it, but, so in the QuickBooks, you have the project specifically, and then you have the grants specifically, and how you're spending down those grants.
Got it. Okay. So like next year on the assets, or like it'll show Greenkill zeroed out because we sold
Correct.
it.
Correct.
And then these expenses will get.
Right, so a lot of these are probably Franklin, correct?
Yep.
So, because that's the one we're working on right now, so
Right.
at that point, we will take all these expenses that that happen in this year, and that will be put into the cost basis, right? Because they're not really expenses.
Right. And these things are inclusive of legacy cities or no?
No, this is
No,
just the.
so that's basically Franklin.
Yeah,
Interesting, okay.
so,
And Greenfield.
And
right, Green Hill's still in that, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the properties for the LLC are it's a little bit more confusing because we have to move those properties over. So if you go back up to the balance sheet for a second. You can still see that there's, those are assets are still in the books of the parent. And Mike and I are trying to get a call with the auditors to see how they would, I don't wanna do any work on it if they're just gonna change the format. Go up one more, Mike, please. So you can go see in here, all of the assets are there, and some of those are have to be moved to the legacy books, so to speak. So I have to, some of the expenses are still in the P and L,
mhm,
profit and loss, so when the auditors come and put those expenses back up into the assets, then we can pull them out of here and put them into the LLC. So we're waiting for a call to get that all handled. Is that
yes,
more in? You're like,
thank
okay.
you for, I mean.
Okay, so right,
It's
so
not
you
my
can,
job.
so you can see all those assets that are on here, they have to be moved to the LLC, and I want to move them properly with the total amount of value. But starting, when did we start, like, when we funded it was in September. September was when we funded the LLC. So that's when expenses happened to happen out of the LLC. But before that, they happened in this, so we have to clean that up.
Right, okay.
So yeah, just by way of background, we had to start a separate company to do the legacy cities. And that's what this LLC is.
Okay, sorry.
So it's okay. It's okay.
Please don't get another question, like.
So it's a separate company that we're in partnership with the contractor and the state to do these projects.
Okay.
So it's not
He was reading my mind.
Right.
Right, so there's the parent and then there's the LLC. So a grant was moved out of the parent into the LLC to help with the construction. And then also, these properties need to be moved over as well with their correct basis, so to speak. So. And that's gonna happen at the year, end of the year, in the books. It happens,
Oh, great.
they're ready, but the books haven't reflected that, and they will.
But just for like public or like the numbers we're seeing on this part at least are not especially accurate.
Right, because again, the way that it's been done in the past, they've always kept it in the profit and loss part of it. And then at the end of the year, the accountants group it together and put it in the right place.
Okay,
So we have to wait for that to happen.
so like the reason that Green Kell is at 102
Mhm.
is basically that's our acquisition and part of our construction expenses and this
The
is.
construction expenses up until December 31st, 2021. Any other construction expenses are now on the profit and loss of 2022, and that's when the accountants are gonna come in and they're gonna get that amount, they're gonna put it into that bucket, and then we're gonna be able to close it out to decide what our gain or loss is on it,
Yeah,
so to
it won't
speak.
be gained.
Okay. So that's what happens, and that's why it's still there, yes.
Memories.
Oh, we gained everything.
Big friend.
Thing, and all that stuff, right?
Right. And then as well as the Rogers Streets, Hurley, East Union, and what's the fourth one? Honey? That has to put people down here and put into the LLC for,
Sure.
German thing, yeah. So all these Gs and they're all so similar. Yeah, so those have to be pulled out, but we can't pull them out yet until we take the allocation of those project costs and stick it in there, and then I have to pull them out as a whole number and put it to LLC. Stay tuned, January.
Big month, January's big month.
Stay tuned. You know, it might be valuable. Do you guys ever share the auditor's report at board meeting?
Well, I probably should though, why not?
Have you ever?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Have we ever shared the auditor's report at board meeting?
Yes, we have.
So our audited financials are on the
Yeah.
website.
But have you ever talked about it in?
Oh,
board
we
meeting?
talked about sharing and talking about different things.
Okay.
Well, don't we vote to approve it, to send page?
I don't think we have to.
I don't think so. I think that
We might have,
it is what it is. It's what the auditor did, or, you know.
are we doing work with the same auditors?
I think we will for next year, just in the context of like not wanting to change, too many things.
Yeah,
Do we have to RFP that again?
So we did we passed a budget, enough money to do it.
How much does it cost?
We could do, it's below the budget amount, is what the proposal is. We have not engaged with them yet. We haven't been able to contact them yet.
right. We're on vacation.
But it,
But it's not a big number, if I remember right.
We had an RFP ready to go, maybe for the purposes of being transparent and consistent, we should issue an RFP. But having stated what is the case, that we would think that there would be a risk, regardless of everyone else's price, that would outweigh the benefits of a lower price by jumping. So there are reasons that we don't have to hold an RFP if it's a special circumstance. I would recommend that this falls into that. They're in a unique position, this auditing firm, to continue the consistency that we've had for the past
It
2
would be a
years.
sole source.
Sorry.
They already know.
They know our books and we're.
yeah, it's also annoying, but isn't that basically how we can justify hiring them even if they're not the lowest price, but not really what gets us out of putting out?
No, I believe, I'm trying to recall the pages of the procurement policy, but I think that it says if there's an instance in which there's a specialized service that's uniquely provided by a provider, thou shalt not hold an RFP. It's a carve out for things like
Yes,
this.
typically the sole source procurement is done a couple of reasons. One, you don't want to do an RFP if you're going to do sole source because it just misleads everybody that they're going to get work and they're not.
Right.
Yes, and they might do a lot of work to
For
get to
them,
that place.
right, and you don't want to do that to people. The other thing is you have to document, you have to write a narrative about why this is the sole source procurement and why this outfit is the people that you've gone with, God, the reasons. And you have to get audited.
I was the one who recommended staying with the same auditors because I'm new.
Mhm.
So if you bring a new person me into a new auditor, it's gonna take a lot of time.
Oh, I think it totally makes sense. I just want to make sure.
So I'd be happy to
We
write a
cross
sole
it.
source. So submit it to finance and everybody else with the next board package, a sole source, justification. So we got it. Thank you for catching that. I didn't-
You and me, we're the stickler.
Okay, can I roll down to the balance sheet for the
Yes.
LLC?
And you have to run very soon.
Yes, I do. Sorry, guys. So, this one is really, also work in progress, but you can see here, the, assets in here, so that $512,000 is in the bank account, 500 is from, the grant that got moved over, and the $12,000 is funding from the bank that is, has to be paid out, which has been paid out in December to, the contractor. So, there's, it's pretty clean balance sheet, not a lot on there. There's accounts payable we have, which has been paid out already, it's insurance policies, and the like. And then you can go see the profit and loss statement, it's pretty simple as well. You can see the insurance, you can see, legal and professional fees, I believe that's the, is that the, architect? Okay.
Architecture
I think so,
services.
yeah. And so, this is gonna continue to get larger as, we're on requisition number 2. So, every month we have a requisition and we're on requisition number 2, where now we're waiting for the bank to fund us. And then we can start, paying out to the contractor and building the asset, which will come over, the assets will come over to this. And I think that's
That's it.
all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm open to any questions if anybody has them, to me on the next month will be, probably we'll figure out a different, maybe different method if it's
Yeah.
easier for people to understand, but this is a change from last month, so I thought do baby steps. This
Yeah.
looks, and the finance committee liked this,
Much clearer to understand than what we did from the past. Like,
Good, good,
this is over time, it'll be more intelligible on a month-to-month basis,
Yes.
and how things are changing.
yes, yes,
So thank you so much.
yes, you're welcome.
Thank you, Susan.
Can I just ask, on the architectural services, is that?
Yep.
Have we, are we paid up?
We are paid out, but this is November 30th. So there
So
may-
in the last.
there haven't been any receipts.
Oh, right, but this is all of 2022.
That's true.
So that's all we spent for
Pretty sure,
four Legacy Cities houses
pretty
and
sure.
whatever remaining work.
Gil was separate. Gil was separate, that was kind of broken.
Right, but Franklin we paid for this year. didn't we?
That's Franklin's.
That's the office.
Parent.
Oh, okay, but $10,000 for 4 houses ain't crap.
It's not, what'd you say?
It's a deal.
It's almost like the
It's
design
good?
committee does
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
valuable work.
Like many does.
Just saying, okay,
Daniel's the design
thank you,
committee.
Steve.
Thank you. See you guys.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Stacey.
Happy Hanukkah.
Oh, thank you.
So what I was thinking just before, I think we have to jump, if you're okay with it, jump into the comms report next.
Let's jump.
For, to echo what everyone was saying and what Stacy was reiterating, I think we're getting more and more organized around the presentation around this, and I would recommend the budget that's in the board package. These monthly reports that would come through the finance committee and go to Stacy, along with, I think those are really the source documents for, how we review this and have conversations. The other piece of this that I think is critically important is Owen's reporting at ADC around project level ins and outs and contingencies. and all that
Which
stuff.
is a board package.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which are, I think they're great, they're good. Simple, easy ways to look at where we are.
Even I like them. Their spreadsheets. I know. I'm like, oh, I can understand this. Before we jump, can we vote to accept the treasurer's report?
I make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
I'll second it.
All in favor of accepting the treasurer's report this month? Christina, how do you vote? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Now we're jumping to comms.
Wait. That was it.
I was gonna say thank you for putting me earlier today. I have to get home to see my family in California. We're gonna start, we get back to the agenda, sorry, remember the order that I'm gonna. So the main thing, the main topic of conversation tonight is the Legacy Cities campaign, which will be our next kind of big outreach effort. As a reminder, we'll be selling 2 homes in the first marketing campaign, the 60-day campaign that Mike already mentioned earlier tonight. That will start on January 17th. So maybe Dave mentioned that. As a starting point, Kyle put together I think the very large spreadsheet that Daniel already praised earlier tonight. What did you call it again, Daniel?
A work of art? I don't know. Oh, a matrix.
It's something, a responsibility matrix, is what he said. But it essentially mirrors our fair marketing housing plan that was submitted to the state and allocates kind of responsibilities for each of the kind of components of outreach that we have said we're going to do and will do during that campaign. And allows us to track kind of how much of each line item has been completed, as well as who's completing it and when we want to complete it. This includes everything from, I guess, just to read through some of it, Facebook and Instagram posts, email announcements, flyer read, radio interviews, public information sessions, which we have to what's the word I'm looking for? Post and have with Pathstone, et cetera. A lot of this will be the comms committee. There'll be opportunities for all board members to contribute, especially with flyer read and outreach to community organizations, churches, religious institutions, anybody who can help spread the word about these 2 homes and get more applicants, so that we have a strong base of applicants who qualify for the homes. We won't, I guess, have another board meeting before the marketing commences, but I imagine in the new year, there'll be a lot of communication regarding the kind of, I don't know, the expectations and just like setting up scheduling and figuring out who's gonna do what. So Daniel, Kyle also put together, I think, an initial marketing flyer essentially that is now being updated. Kyle is working on a marketing packet, including which kind of information on what the homes are gonna look like, and other contexts. But
Design committee's working on that too.
Yes, they
the
are.
design committee is working on that, and we praise their work. So this is now online. Is it in our drive?
Yeah, it's saved in the comms folder in the shared drive.
Thanks, Kyle. So everybody can look at it, and should look at it. It's also in the board packet. If you have particular things you want to do, please write, I guess, to me and Kyle and Mike and Bartek and say, I'd really like to do this. If you have people you think we should reach out to, organizations we should reach out to, please let us know, and
There's a
facilitate it.
tab on there.
Yes.
That's a list of
Organizations.
we sell. Anyone that can build that out further.
Yeah, add people to the list. We've already committed to reaching out to, I don't know, the half dozen churches and synagogues and mosques and other nonprofit organizations that have their own community bases in Kingston. And really anything we can do to spread the word. So anything else with regards to this, the timing right now that I should highlight that we wanted to highlight?
I did want to ask, Eileen, I was gonna ask Eileen this Because we already have, as you know, hundreds of individuals in our database. So I assume there will be some sort of communication to them, or she has a few that she already knows where they land and if they would qualify based on what they submitted last time. Is
Well,
that a correct assumption?
it probably is correct that she has old information from previous
That's
applicants.
right, it might be updated.
And
Yeah,
so
okay,
the approach has been.
right, yeah,
What we always say to people when they ask about how to get involved in between campaigns is to fill out the intake form, to sign up for the mailing list, so you're made aware of it. And then you'll be contacted when the campaign is launched, and that's the homeownership counselor's kind of job to verify all that information, so everybody will be reaching back out. Last time, not very many people responded,
yeah,
unfortunately, but from prior campaigns,
So if you already applied in a prior campaign,
don't need to.
you don't need to do it again.
No, really, not even that initial form at all.
The thinking is
That's great.
I don't recommend that we change that approach, because if people if they're like in there 3 or 4 times,
Yeah.
and then we're they kind of get lost in a sea of folks.
Yeah.
People could apply a million times, but it would be confusing for Pat Stone to sort through that. And us, Kyle and I are taking the lead on organizing the KCLB's submissions to Pat Stone, so we have to organize all this data.
So
Can I don't know if I missed it. Is there a limit on how many times families can apply?
No.
No, we do have,
like how many rounds of marketing you mean?
If you sort of apply and you're not selected by the lottery, can you just keep?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sure, we have a little nuance there that Mike's gonna tell you.
We have an internal policy that dates back to the first campaign that we did for the first 3 homes, because we had 3 homes offered at the same time, and unfortunately, there was potentially a circumstance in which someone had said, I will buy this home if I win the lottery and I'm selected. And then they won, or they were selected, and they decided they didn't want it. And so that sort of threw our whole campaign, then everyone else has been informed that they didn't win. So we talked about an internal thing to say, if you do that, you cannot. But we didn't, I don't know if we ever
Did we
finalized it.
actually decide that?
I don't think we.
We talked about it, but
That's a subtle nuance. The nuance is basically if you do, not about applicant applying, you can apply as many times.
Sure.
If you do win, if you do if you win the lottery, you agree to buy the home, and then you say no for 1 round after that.
so what was,
You cannot win, be awarded.
You can't apply.
You can't apply,
Okay.
yeah.
I think where it got sticky though, is in that specific instance, it was because we were offering 3 homes at once, that family was eligible for 2. We selected them, they were selected for 1, and it wasn't the one that they wanted essentially, so.
But they did clearly say, if selected for either home, I will,
Okay.
that was why we started talking.
Yeah, because I remember at least talking about it, and there was a feeling of like, well, you're not trying to force people to live on this street if they don't want to live on that
Yeah.
street, it's like, yeah.
The challenge was selling a lot of homes at once.
Right, but like for this one, the houses are same bedroom count, roughly the same size, similar neighborhood, and the exact same price. So in theory, everyone who's eligible will be eligible for both, right? So we may have to talk about this at the next committee meeting.
Sure.
I don't have strong feelings, I'm just. If we have a policy, we should. You do. Okay, fine. I do, sometimes I do. Like, always.
So other things in terms of, I'll just last thing on the campaign, I'll just say, itself, the outreach portion of it is, watch out for emails. Because I think a lot of, communication, organizing around, volunteer time, I think there's gonna be a lot of, flyering in the evenings and on weekends and who can do this radio spot for us, so keep a lookout, and everybody should feel free to contribute and participate as much as you can, but there's no obligation to do more than you can. I guess the other thing on legacy cities round one of marketing we want to discuss is a slight change in the price that we are proposing to market them for. So this question, I was trying to find, Mike, where is it?
Yeah, I've been working on it all day, and I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was trying to find the original version, because I just had the price.
We don't have the prices fixed for the homes yet.
No,
We're
no.
getting there.
Oh, no, I know.
Oh, okay.
No, I know. I just, you had, before the committee meeting, Kyle had sent a mock-up of that,
Yes.
so I was trying to find that, right? But it doesn't really matter.
Oh, I see what you're saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah, very fine. Essentially, if you recall, and for our two new board members, the state, because of rising interest rates, we can no longer afford to sell the homes for the amount that we closed on when we closed on construction financing. Correct me if I'm saying correctly.
You're saying it totally right.
And so there is a gap. Mike and Kyle are working with the state on a way to fill that gap. The state has committed to filling that gap either through either through directly subsidizing the project more or through providing a new low interest loan essentially for the purchasers of the homes. This loan is a new product that the state hasn't announced yet, so they won't guarantee us anything. They're just saying kind of hold off. As a result of that, we don't have a clear, the lowest that the banks will allow us to market the homes for is essentially the lowest price that we would need to pay back the debt, but that isn't the real price of the homes. We don't anticipate that will actually be the final purchase price for, coming up again, I see you like.
Only because some stuff has
Please.
evolved a little bit.
Please.
You're 100% right that that's
Yeah.
exactly how the situation looks. However, today,
Okay.
the state had, as recently as an hour or two ago, the state has expressed a willingness to allow us to present the prices at a much lower number than what we were originally talking about.
Okay.
It's a big shift. It's a change. We're still getting, I may have an email that I haven't seen, but they understand the urgency of it. I would recommend that the board still consider what I think you were just about to propose
Yeah.
as a backup
Okay.
if that conversation doesn't.
Okay, so the backup then is essentially the price the price that we were going to be allowed to market the homes for was about $215,000 per home. What? Sorry, $210 per home. And we basically didn't like the look of marketing the homes for above $200,000. Because the goal was always to keep it below 80% AMI, which is what it's currently at, but we wanted it to be lower. So the proposal that we discussed, what we should have discussed at the disposition acquisition committee, but we ended up discussing during the communications and fundraising committee was to actually just allocate about a little over $30,000 of our own money to essentially buy down the cost of the homes. So we would take money that we have not already allocated and essentially go to the bank and say, we will give you this, kind of fight you this money, tell the state, we've given the money to the bank, we no longer have control over it, please allow us to market the homes for $195,000. That would still be a temporary measure for the sake of marketing, because we still hope the state will provide some additional support and some additional, or this new loan product. But it will, if what Mike is saying doesn't come through, it will allow us to market the homes for a lower price that is, at least, in some ways it is, well, it's not, it's a real $15,000 subsidy on the price of the homes, but it's also, we didn't like also the look of it being above, we didn't like the look of the two, we wanted the one there. So that's us, yeah, so that was the idea. I'm not sure if we need a vote on it, we do need a vote on it.
I would recommend that there be a memorialization of like moving that much.
Okay, so to start, questions, comments?
So at this time, the motion is for just East Union and German.
It's for, sorry.
So East Union and German, we're like selling first, they're also gonna be finished first, et cetera. And so those are the only two out of the four we're talking about right now. Hopefully, by the time we're dealing with the next two, the state will have cleared up what it is they're actually offering, and then, because that's,
This may not come.
it's more, it's also like just kind of for a buyer, like seeing over $200,000 looks like I can't afford that. And it's hard to say, like, it's definitely gonna be less, we just don't know how much less.
Yeah.
But, like, you can afford it, like, we'll make sure that.
Mike and Kyle did their best to mock it up, and the way it looked mocked up, it said like the higher level, it said like 210,000, and then there was an asterisk, you look down below, and there was like all this like nuance that was just, it was accurate, it was like basically, this isn't the real price, you know, it'll be lower than this, promise us. But like, you know, we're saying trust us, the state is saying trust us, and so it was a little too complex, but.
And just to give like a sneak peek into what's being discussed right now, you have to, you can't mislead anyone, you have to say everything accurately in your marketing, it has to be real and true and transparent. So what we're talking about doing is presenting different prices based on different assumptions of the envelope rate. So if interest rates are here, this is what the price shall be. If interest rates are there, this is what the price shall be. So the price is somewhere in the middle of those, because right now, the state's interest rate on their envelope is 6.25. So if it's 6.25, this is what the price is. If it's 7%, which I think is more likely to be like 6.75 by June, I mean, they're only going up for now. So this is what the price is, and that would be the presentation. It's somewhat, a little bit, it's more nuanced than just saying, here's a price, but it also is accurate and it demonstrates a price that's lower than what we were even talking about.
Is it lower? Yes, okay, it is.
Yeah, in all cases, it would be lower. So
Okay.
if the board chooses to pass this backup plan,
Okay.
we could also do that if for some reason the state changes its mind or evolves its thinking.
Well, let me hear one other question, which is like, if the state, if we market it, let's say in a range, and we say this is the range depending on interest rates. If the state, let's say in 4 months, does release a new low interest kind of envelope product, does that limit our ability to sell the homes for a cheaper price than what's in that range? Because now the state, you know what I mean? Like, are we locking ourselves into potentially selling it for more expensive than
It's a really good question. I don't know how it would play out, but the inverse could also, is also true in my mind. If
Yeah.
interest rates drop, the price goes up.
Yeah,
And so like, if we were to decide to sell for more than we had to, which we wouldn't,
yeah,
then we would have to take it back out to the market. But if you're selling below, if something were to come in, the inverse of that is also that we could sell them much lower AMIs than we had ever anticipated if interest rates drop. It's the same algebra.
yeah.
But I wouldn't recommend that we, go dramatically lower. So if the new product comes out, we could talk about it. I don't believe I know the answer to what exactly we have to do,
Yeah,
but I don't believe the product will come out for us in time for sales.
maybe round 2, but not.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
It's tied to a much larger $400 million initiative the state is doing for affordable homeownership. We appreciate partnering with the state of New York, but we recognize they have larger deals.
Yeah, we're 200,000. Yeah, okay.
But they're trying. The state's been very flexible and responsive and helpful. So that's the background.
So what do you want this resolution to say?
Wait, you have a question? The resolution is, I guess, we authorizing Mike and to if the state. How would you phrase
Can I make a
it?
recommendation?
Yeah, please, this is like a.
If the board would authorize the KCLB to commit the total amount for the reduction of cash purchase price of the first 2 homes if needed.
Okay.
And you know, say the number?
The number is $15,066 per home. Times 2 is 30,000. 32. So that's the number.
So,
So the resolution is that the board will commit
yeah, made $30,132.
$30,132 toward the purchase price, toward buying down the purchase price of these 2 houses in this round of sales, if necessary.
And we
If
are,
necessary, to keep the price
below $200,000.
About $200,000. It can just be if necessary, if necessary.
And the money is coming from unspent operating funds.
I think we've figured out exactly where it would come from. We have a portion of our 2022 operating grant that was originally applied for and awarded for a position that we didn't hire.
Oh,
So we haven't touched it, so it's clean. And NOVA has been very flexible with us under our general operating grant, not like our project level grants, but if we need to change something, they've been remarkably, they've told us repeatedly, it's very fungible, just let us know and we will. So,
And I can't imagine they're gonna have an issue with us making the homes. So that's like it's a good thing.
should I motion that we authorize Mike as executive director to reallocate up to $30,132 in order to buy down the prices of 237 East Union and 63 German,
If necessary.
if necessary.
If necessary, to keep the sale price below 200,000.
Exactly. Second,
Not just if necessary.
Any discussion? All in favor of authorizing Mike to reallocate not to exceed $30,162 to $32 to buy down the price of the homes if necessary to keep the prices under $200,000 when we commence sales and marketing. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. The motion we maybe didn't need, but we did it.
I see one more thing about the campaign, I just think would be, if you don't mind. By the time you mentioned, I mean, you noted, by the time we come back, the campaign will be underway for a board meeting. So generally, I think it's worth just talking about like the way that there will be opportunities to plug everybody into the homeownership counselor. Their contact information will be on our intake form. And any questions or concerns or comments or blah, 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 they all go to the homeownership counselor. So no one has to feel like they have to answer questions that they don't know and like figure things out.
No, should we?
I think that we've learned that I think
You know,
that's.
we should send questions to the counselor and not get in the middle of.
A version of some guidelines.
Like this, like-
Yeah.
All the homeownership counselor.
That's their job, and that's,
Maybe
keeps
I
us-
should.
and the tricky thing for tree members, the tricky thing is that we don't want to, we want to spread the word as far and wide as possible without even giving the appearance of having a preference on one purchaser over another purchaser. So all of this is very, it's a tricky balance between trying to be as out in Kingston selling the homes as possible and not having, and then also limiting a certain kind of one-on-one. Anything that can kind of give off that appearance.
keeping the board arm's length from any purchases.
So like we'll essentially have printed materials and then if you're asked something that's not on the printed material, the best thing to do is just say, go to our website, you can reach out to the home ownership counselor, we have a phone number.
So in terms of the actual items though, just to go through, so there's the public intake and notice form and the overviews to go live in the campaign. Mike and Daniel are working on that. Pat Stone is working on is kind of, I guess, probably just be looped into all of that right now. Mike is working on a website, static news item on the website. That'll be at the top of the website on the homepage. Daniel and I will be doing Facebook and Instagram posts for all the homes several times, at least 5 times throughout the month. Daniel is the keeper of our photographs, and I check it on occasion. The email list announcements, Mike and Bartek will work on those. Daniel is planning to do some virtual open houses. I'm gonna just do things that, let's see, so there'll be, so community contact outreach and writing. Does that refer to just reaching out and writing to local communities?
Yes.
So, so things that everybody should feel free to jump in on, are reaching out to local community groups and writing, to describe what we're doing and ask them to help spread the word amongst kind of people who belong to those groups. Doing flyer distribution, we'll be doing a lot of flyering, both at different institutions in Kingston and also some kind of business to business flyering, I think, places where a lot of people go on Broadway and elsewhere. There'll be radio interviews. If anybody would like to do a radio interview, please, say so over email, English or Spanish, if you want to jump in. We will be setting up interviews on Radio Kingston, on different shows. Hope so. On different shows to describe the process, and as well as announcements that will air between shows, as those of you who've heard Radio Kingston know, they air for different community groups. There'll also be newspaper interviews that we're setting up, hopefully with local press, if you're interested in doing that. Newspaper ads. Well, the ads, those won't really be things that we all work on, because those will be form ads.
They will,
Yeah.
if we decide to run those. I think that was just trying to be as comprehensive as possible at this
Okay.
point to throw everything out there.
Okay. So the things that everybody should feel free to jump in on are really the outreach portion of it, the community groups and interviews and flyering. And just please make sure that you note, if you communicate, if you're gonna email somebody, that you note it in our tracker, you tell people you're gonna reach out to a particular group so that we don't, cross communication and duplicate our efforts, so we reach as far and wide as possible. So that's it on legacy cities marketing. I guess that's what you were saying before. Do you want me to bring up the other thing or not? Sorry.
Now we got
Let it,
No, I didn't know what you said, the investing thing.
I think the board should start talking.
Okay.
And I just, not to speak for Nate, but I did talk to Nate earlier
Okay.
today about it, and he thought it would be great if people could show up to the next finance meeting with ideas, but open call the whole board members to talk about it.
Okay, so
Can I add into that question on the sales and marketing?
yeah,
Kind of my.
okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
Are we trying to put these on Zillow or
On where?
Zillow or MLS? Slash, do we know if that's okay?
There's no prohibition on putting them on Zillow. But last time we did it, when we were allowed by Zillow to do it, because the prices were so low, Zillow didn't believe us that we were selling the houses for that cheap.
Wow.
But when we did it, it just pointed to our intake form.
Right.
The reason it might be difficult this time is because when we don't have a price, we might have a rate. And Zillow's not gonna be like.
They kind of like prices.
They're like individual, but.
That's true, very good point.
Do we think we will need that broader exposure for these two sales?
I think for the same reason we may not go to Instagram, we might not go to Zillow.
We may be able to satisfy our need for qualified buyers without,
Yeah, so,
We have time.
We didn't put Great Mill on Zillow, right?
No, that was not part of that campaign.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure anybody really has the data, like the first three we do, but we mostly just did social media, large part because COVID made it not really possible to be knocking on people's doors. And then with Greenkill, there was kind of concern about being too broad and potentially attracting people from out of the area, but I don't know if we have really dug into like if that ended up being true or
Well,
not.
well, one of the questions I would ask is, some of the applicants on our first series of sales came from far and wide. And I'm curious about how they came to know us
And our second round,
in our second round.
which we did totally different.
For example, the people from Utah,
well,
were nice people, but
I thought we knew what had money, but wasn't there like somebody who used to live in Kingston, who moved to Utah and like knew them? Was there some?
Well, it's like I think everybody has a different story, so like, who knows, but I think there was a feeling among the board that if we don't go far and wide on the internet, we will do much better locally. And where that got us kind of in reality was a third of the applicants that we got the first time. And we still got plenty of people from out of the area. The two that ended up being qualified were in the area, but that was basically a coincidence.
The truth is that even people locally, everyone looks,
Right. I mean, my feeling is like, I think it's weird to try to sell a house without advertising it on places where people are looking for houses and apartments.
Yeah.
Like, I totally understand the argument in both directions.
Right.
I
I mean, we do,
feel-
we do want, it is our, well, it's my desire, I guess I'll say it, it's what I'm everybody in trouble, to sell these houses to people who aren't here in this community.
That was one of my questions when I was interviewed.
Right, and I mean, it's something we like, you know, the basic fact is we can't violate fair housing laws, so we can't
Right.
discriminate. However, so pretty much, how do we market the homes to get the most people?
If you market, you know, as you market locally, you get local people, you market.
Yeah, I mean-
wide,
You get everything.
you get-
yeah, and not quite sure.
The advantage is it's a 60-day marketing period. So I think it's, if we're at the halfway mark, and it seems like we're not getting a lot of applicants, perhaps then we could post them.
Make a change, try to really go wider.
Right,
That's a thought.
So, wait, is what we're discussing like not doing, I know we started out with Zillow, but are we talking about like not doing social media stuff this time? I thought it is on our list, I was wondering. I thought we should do social media.
I
stuff.
think
We got a lot of
A lot of
applicants
applicants,
last time.
Yeah, yeah.
so,
right.
Locally.
yeah.
Local, so, yeah, local,
Like,
like,
if the information, because the other thing is like it's all anonymized for us, so I think it would be fascinating to go in and look at where people are coming from in each campaign to see if like there is an appreciable effect, but I don't think we have evidence for that. It's just sort of a vibe. And a vibe seems like a bad reason to limit marketing activity. So, yeah. So we were saying it's a 60-day period, so maybe we evaluate at 30 days and see if maybe we want to put it on
Smart.
Zillow,
I
or
think
we
we-
might also have an RFP out for broker services, and then it potentially it's on MLS too.
Smart.
Zillow is the only one I'm aware of that you don't have to be a licensed. It's not realtor. A realtor is a brand name. Anyway, you don't have to be licensed to put your home on Zillow, but all the other ones you do. So like, without having a broker on the team, we haven't done that yet.
we talked about RFP for broker.
We sure have.
Yeah, for the next like half is sale. But if we had someone.
Did we go?
2023 is gonna be fun.
2023.
We're so much.
So to finish,
I like that. Let's give it 30 days.
so to finish up then, the last item, comes, the idea arose, Stacy actually brought it up, at our last committee meeting, with finance. Was, it's not politics, it's finance, the committee meetings were back to back, I can't tell which one ended, the other one began. We have cash on hand that most of which is allocated, but which is essentially sitting in a bank account waiting to get spent on one of the things that we've allocated to spend it on, was that we could, find a, liquid and safe investment essentially, to invest the bulk of that money in and essentially collect a low interest rate, wouldn't make a ton of money on it, but a low interest rate on that investment would have to be an investment where you could pull out money very easily because we have ongoing expenses, obviously. Would have to be a very safe investment because all that money is allocated. I honestly was not aware that organizations did this. It was the first time I had heard of it. But it's an interesting idea that we wanted to raise for discussion today.
I have an essential oils offer that
We will not be investigate
Just use
more.
it for my multi-level marketing.
That, your honor, is how we bought NFTs.
So many of them. So it would be basically a portion of our unobligated. No, it would be a portion of our,
We would essentially take our funds on hand and
okay,
invest it.
like, S&P
Like put it in the
500.
Put it in an interest-bearing account, is that what we're saying?
Well, I
I
think
think she's saying.
just for us to talk about like a money market, short-term money market, liquid, totally liquid account. But Stacy didn't want to make a recommendation. She wanted to just give some examples, but she didn't want to be the one making a recommendation in her position. So the thinking was the board could have some ideas and then we could talk about it at finance and then come back to the board with a proposal. I think, right? That
Yeah,
was-
that's
So
exactly
the
right.
idea is essentially, right now, all of our money is sitting in a normal bank account where it's accruing
No,
very little interest.
But there are
Which means it's losing value.
Exactly.
There are some savings accounts, now, I mean, it's like 4%. And there's a,
I mean, that's.
4% savings.
It's better than treasury bonds.
what do you get an iPhone for almost 7%?
Those are the
But
last.
it's only $10,000 per person per year. So
This is not investment advice.
It's a bear market.
We all have our pieces.
Okay.
It could be a bull market though, you just never know.
So- We would look to Tracy to make a recommendation for that.
I think Tracy was hoping that the finance committee would make a recommendation.
I think
Fear
we-
Stacy.
But the vehicle.
I don't think we have a vehicle yet. I think this is like the first conversation. I don't think we're ready to vote to do this tonight. Because I mean, I for one, and you know, don't work in finance and don't know every possible way to invest this kind of money and would want to seek advice on the best kind of thing, the safest kind of thing, that we could possibly do. As much as I would like 3% to kind of help our, you know, continue to build our capacity, I would much rather have 0% than, you know, do something that's risky.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
But,
Dealing with the stock market today.
so with,
Stay away.
Not good.
so to move this forward, would some combination of finance and staff come up with a potential recommendation for where to invest some pros and cons?
I think we probably have to have a few options and evaluate them. Like, it's not a decision to be taken.
I mean, I'm probably gonna start just by reaching out to friends who work in nonprofits to ask what they do with their money.
Yeah, I've heard of this with foundations that I've never heard
Maybe we'll find it's a bad
Mean
idea.
anything.
Yeah.
Churches that invest their money.
We're in a fortunate place because we don't have a lot of properties that we need to lay out cash for in the near term. It's the organization's cash that isn't covered by something else.
But the question is how to like, it's like, there's nothing to invest money down the line, there's nothing to invest money that some of this money will have short-term obligations towards. Maybe not 30 days,
But it has to be.
You wouldn't want to have it.
yeah,
I mean, you could, but.
We can just-
yeah.
Do the sources of funding have to consent to this?
Well, I don't know. I don't think that they would for the ones that we have under the KCLB. For like the LLC, the state grant funds, which we do not have,
Yeah.
the bank, we could never, or the bank loan, we could never invest in bank.
Right.
But everything else, I think that we could,
I wouldn't think they'd be excited about anything that was risky at all.
No,
100%.
You know,
And I think it's a really good point. Maybe we should be disclosing it to some of those who have given us funding and talking about it with them too, so it's no surprise to anyone.
yeah.
So we shouldn't put it all in Berkshire.
It all comes back to what?
It's like the circle of life.
Alright, we get too derailed,
Fascinating.
Right.
So, okay, cool. Interesting.
so we'll.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned for January, when, we'll see. That is it for communication fundraising tonight. I pass it back to Mike.
And I pass it back to Daniel
Can I pass it to,
for EDC.
you want to do ADC or governance?
Your
just have to leave.
You gotta go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do. Yeah, I think governance, we could do fast, right? Pretty
If-
fast.
I gotta go. If it's,
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot.
yeah.
We can do
Let's
it.
do it.
We can do it in 5 minutes. We can
Let's
it in
do
5
it,
minutes.
let's do it. Sorry.
All right.
Here we go.
Sorry, Owen.
The Owen sent out, and it was in your package, charts that show the progress on the construction projects. So there's one for Franklin and there's one for the Legacy City things. They're very good. Take a look at them. It shows you where we're in trouble. We're only in trouble in one place, and Owen has it in hand. So instead of going over them, I would just commend them to everybody to take a look at. They're very easy to read. You did a great job. Frank Hamilton, we signed the extension. It'll be the last extension. We get done with this. The other thing that's a little interesting about the ABC meetings is we're going to ask, I think we should ask, and everybody thinks we should ask the city for a monthly meeting, to talk about how they're doing quiet time. What do you think about that, Mr. Housing person?
I'm an open book. I already read the monthly.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I would want to meet with the lawyer to say how we do it.
yeah, I mean, everything that the lawyer knows, I know.
Okay.
I can always invite the lawyer to just. I don't know if we can, whatever.
Yeah.
Or you can come to ADC with a lawyer without
Yeah.
or something like that.
So maybe maybe if you invite the lawyer, we can come and
So, I mean,
say,
there's not, I mean, beyond the status, there's not much to say.
right, but being nagged might might have a benefit.
Of course, yeah, well, which lawyer are you referring to?
The lawyer is doing their title stuff.
Okay, well, that's not,
That's not the city council.
that's. it's not-
Sorry to be,
Yeah.
but can we let Owen?
Yeah.
speak so he can-
Yeah, Owen, have you got anything to say beyond what I said?
what was that, Bob? I didn't hear the last thing you said.
Do you have anything beyond my reference to your wonderful charts? And
Yeah.
give us an update on Franklin. would be-
Yeah, Just very briefly on Legacy Cities. Things are fine with Legacy Cities. We had a little delay waiting for Central Hudson to hook up power, but we got one of the properties that we were waiting on, still, I believe, waiting on the second one, but nothing really just to discuss with Legacy Cities. We're getting into a flow with the requisitions, and that's going fine. On just briefly, when you were looking at the LLC report earlier in the meeting, that $10,000 or whatever you were seeing for LMV is not the total amount of architectural expenses that we have for Legacy City. So just sorry to just say you, Daniel, but
Thanks that it could be right.
yeah, that's probably just a coding, whatever, idiosyncrasy or whatever. But anyway, so Franklin, I like nuance, so I'm not, it felt like 15 minutes was like too short to discuss the situation in ADC, and 5 minutes is too short to discuss the situation at this meeting. But like we're about to terminate the contract with our contractors at 124 Franklin, and we discussed with ADC on Friday. Looked at our different options, which included, a more punitive option, which is terminating for cause, where we basically say, this is your fault, and we're gonna hold you over the coals about it, and you're not gonna get any money out of us until we finish the job. Termination for convenience, which is what we're moving forward with, which is basically just telling them we're the owner. It says in our contract we can stop the contract at any point and settle up. So we've been drafting the letter with the lawyer and have it ready to go. Its plan is to send it out tomorrow morning. Though we would like for the board to, officially express their being behind that action. The idea is to terminate them for convenience, and then settle up with the contractor, who we have a requisition that was kind of reviewed in person. That brought us out to the end of October, but they have not submitted their final for that. And it's December 19th now. So the hope is that we send them this letter tomorrow, and then we've got basically one more round of agreeing on a requisition, though agreeing in a way is like could mean the initial decision maker, which is the architect, kind of makes the agreement for us if there's any issues between us. So in a minute, I'm going to turn it back to you, but I guess I just want to say, like, I do feel like this is the way to go. I think it's a smart move for us. I also, it's not a move that is riskless. I think it's just the risk that's a better option than our other risks that we have at the moment with the project. The risks being that we don't know how the process of wrapping it up with our current contractor is going to go. We're approaching it from a attitude of let's make it cordial and write them a check and be done. But we don't have control of the way the other party reacts to the situation. And then we don't have the solution that's finalized, lined up for how the project gets done. I have been in talks with qualified contractors around the project, and feel like we can get it done, but we will probably need to, as Daniel highlighted in the ADC committee, probably need to put it out for another RFP, even if it's a quick one, to meet our procurement policies. But that's what's on my mind. Any questions on that?
We're just gonna add, for what it's worth, the letter going out tomorrow. Tomorrow is also their substantial completion date, which they are light years away from. So is that part of why tomorrow and not?
Yeah, I mean, part of why it's like I am also, yes, tomorrow. That's why it's happening tomorrow, but also now that we've kind of decided it, and we haven't gotten this last requisition, now I'm like antsy to send it out so we have one round and not like, if I got the requisition today, there's kind of like a requisition that we've mutually agreed on. We just haven't like received their final version of it. And so if I received it earlier this afternoon, I'd probably have to say, all right, I guess we have to process that. And then we're going to settle on what else is left. But now it's like one round, one negotiation. We have a strong position. There's things to work out for sure. There's individual items that, if you looked at it, you'd be like, oh, we got a good deal out of that item. That item we're going to pay twice for. That's what's going to happen. That's a bummer, but I think it's the right move for us as far as moving forward on the project. I don't think it's been a waste, the money we've spent overall. I think there has been positive progress we've gotten out of the house, and I think that we will get the most positive progress from switching to a different contractor.
So do we want to do a resolution authorizing this or supporting this? Or not? Do we need to? I don't think we need to, but do we want to?
I think the way that Owen framed it is probably the most helpful, like having the board support, or like board support of this decision. It's a strong recommendation would be helpful. So board can resolve to strongly support sending a letter or something like that.
I'll make a motion that the board is in support of terminating the existing contract with Nail It Right Construction for the rehab of 124 Franklin Street
For convenience.
for convenience.
Second, there you go.
Any discussion? All in favor? Christina, is that a yay? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. I will get a two-handed vote, so I think that counts as two.
I think we're done. We can, that's
That's the last vote.
That's the last vote.
the last one. We're done.
I'm gonna keep listening from my phone, but I'm feeling go.
Okay, everybody's got complicated.
That makes me feel better.
Someone's gotta go. Owen, thank you for your
Okay.
patience.
Thank you so much, Owen.
Around.
Safe trip,
Thank you,
everybody.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Happy everything.
Right.
You too.
Season's greeting. How's that?
How you go? Be safe, guys.
Thank you. Um,
Governance.
Have we lost quorum?
It's okay, because we're not voting.
Okay.
If you give me 90 seconds, I'll be on Zoom.
Oh, all right.
Safe trip.
I just, you're there. Thank you. Well, happy holidays.
Thank you.
Okay. So we did that.
Can we close the loop on the lawyer thing?
On the what, I'm sorry?
Lawyer question?
Oh, yeah.
But who do you invite? The meeting?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Yes,
I think when there's an actual update, the lawyer can be involved.
okay. So you don't think,
For reasons that I can't necessarily mention,
Sure.
I mentioned to Mike,
Seems fair.
there's not really an update,
all right, that's fine, okay.
but I'm,
Right.
can provide an update.
Right. So I'll add you as an optional attendee days.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want, the mission is just to, we're anxious, but you know.
Okay. Governance.
Yes, so, three things, we decided that going forward, we would appoint members for 3-year terms, irrespective of the seat that that individual is filling. And then also the term is 3 years from the date of appointment. And we have bylaw changes in the board packet.
It has to go for 2 months.
Right, yes. We discussed board member recruitment briefly. I guess the one thing of note is that we're gonna do a radio ad possibly involving homeowner of Vernon Greenhill. I saw that email.
Yep.
So I'm gonna do copy on it.
Right.
And then, Mike and Mike updated the financial disclosure forms. Yes.
It did, didn't it?
And everyone, including Christina and Ethel, will have to do it. I'll send those around after the meeting. Since it's.
And the only change, the only substantive change to it was to make it be consistent with our bylaws. There was just some nuance about who has to disclose what, and now it's consistent with our bylaws that board members disclose to the chair of the governance committee. Mike discloses to the board. Kyle, Stacy, and Owen disclose to Mike unless it involves Mike, in which case they would.
And our attorney keeps the files.
Correct, but I need a copy of them for AP.
That's all.
There's nobody here to talk about January. It's one of the things that we talked about at governance, like what's going to happen at the January board meeting with elections.
Nobody knows. Well, I'll send an email. All right. So.
It'll be as much fun as last year.
Wasn't my fault, sure. Okay, so the bylaws, just to make sure our bases are covered here. So whenever, Christina, this is the really fun stuff with public authorities. Whenever we make a bylaw change, we have to read it at one meeting and then we can't vote on it till the next meeting and then it gets like submitted to the state or some magic that Mike does later. I don't know, something.
I'll remember.
Or somebody does it, that's not me. So what we are changing, what we are proposing to change is the resignation and removal of directors and newly created directorships. So it used to be Wait, Christina was in the meeting.
She was in the meeting.
For the public, it used to be, if I leave the board after a year and a half, the next person finishes out my term. What we decided is that's sort of silly and stupid, and let's just, if you're appointed to this board, your clock starts when you're appointed and you have 3 years and can re-up for another 3 at the pleasure of the mayor. So that's what we, yes.
There's one other thing that Brian and I caught when we were going through it, is just cleanup to remove the limiting number to remove limiting the number of people in any committee.
I see. So that's Article 3, committees. So we are not limiting positions on committees. Do we motion to move this forward?
No, you read
It's
it.
easy as you just kind of read it.
Yeah, you
next
did it.
time you vote.
Did I do the thing?
You did that.
Okay. Any question or discussions? Great. Anything else? That was a beautiful report. Thank you, Bartek. Okay. Design committee, I see we're making swag. We'll find out more later. We do have ambitions of swag now that we have our beautiful new logo, potentially a new member of the committee. So, yeah, we have ambitions for swag in 2023. So you can have your very own KCLB tote bag. That's all I really want out of my life here. Okay, we have public comments. We have no members of the public. Let's go. New business, only that this is our last meeting of the year. January will be our annual meeting, which is when officer elections and committee assignments take place. Officers, we've historically, I think people stayed in those positions through the year. Committees tend to shift around, but it's nice if you have an idea of where you want to be. It's nice to not have a ton of movement if we can avoid it. If you are considering running for an officer position, I'll send this out in an email, but a heads up to the board is appreciated, though not required, and I think that's it on that. And otherwise, does anyone have any other new business? Or old, or just business? Okay, then a very happy Hanukkah to fellow Jews, myself, and Kwanzaa and Christmas and all of the things that are happening, but in Hanukkah right now, so, okay.
Everybody gets New Year's.
No, we still have to vote to adjourn, Bob.
Oh, all right. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. Can I second? Fine. All in favor of adjournment?
Sure.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Kyle.
See you in 23.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.